Hello everyone, welcome to today's very short tutorial. Over the summer holidays, I enrolled my children, my son and daughter, in a Xiangqi class that was headed by International Master Chao Ifan. And perhaps I have been playing Xiangqi for so many decades now, I forgot what it was really like to be an absolute beginner. Now, both my children know how to play Xiangqi from school, but they never received any formal training, and they were exactly like what I was when I started out decades ago, not knowing what to do. So this video is made for absolute beginners who are interested in the game but have no idea, and it will explain the very basic concepts of capturing the enemy king or delivering a checkmate. Okay, to begin with, in this very simple position over here, there's only one black king, one red king, and one pawn. Now, if it were red's turn to move, this would be a checkmate if red played k5 plus 1, because after playing k5 plus 1 or k5 plus equals to 4, the black king would be placed under stalemate. It cannot move to the central file, it cannot advance because the red pawn would capture the black king. Now in Xiangqi, a stalemate would be considered to be a loss for the king that is placed under stalemate. So since the black king cannot move, this would be considered to be a win for red. Now, before we continue, there's also one very important rule that must be learned. That will be the royal rule. The royal rule states that the kings cannot face each other in the same file, vertical lines of files, without any intervening piece. So the red king cannot move k5 equals to 6, or the kings will be facing each other. And since the black king was already on this file, red would be considered, this would be a mistake, or this would be an error for red. So that is why the red king cannot move to the 6th file. Instead, it can only advance or traverse to this point. And if black were to move, if it was black's turn to move, this would be an immediate loss for black, because the black king would be placed under stalemate position. So this concept of stalemate being a win for the a stalemate being the loss for the king being placed under stalemate must be ingrained into your mind when you play Xiangqi. It's because I find that a lot of international chess players keep forgetting it. So there's no way to run, no place to hide when you play Xiangqi. You have to make your move. Okay. Now, as an extension of this example, I'm using CC Bridge here. So for example, in this situation, what would happen if we retreated the pawn one intersection backwards? So how can red win? We will go over this example with red going first. Now, in the introduction that I just gave, it would be a stalemate for red if he pushed his pawn forward. So if red played p5 plus 1 or advanced his pawn one intersection forward, this would be a checkmate. Another way for red to win would be to play p5 equals to 6. Again, this would be a checkmate position. This would be a stalemate, resulting in a checkmate. This is because the black king must move, but it cannot move to the central file, as the royal rule would now be breached. It cannot advance either, because the pawn would capture the black king. So it would be this would be considered to be a checkmate. Now, what would happen if black moved first? So for example, if for example black started with k4 equals to 5, so again red can push his pawn forward. The black king cannot capture the red pawn, or the royal rule will be breached again. So black can either move his king here or over here. Now it will be the same in this instance, in this example. So after moving the king here, it will be red's turn to move, and red must make a move. So there are two options. One would be to move the pawn, and the other would be to move the king. However, if red pushed the pawn forward, it will still be a check, and the black king cannot capture the red pawn, or the royal rule would be breached. The black king would be forced to advance. But after advancing to the third rank, the horizontal lines are called ranks, the black king would now have two intersections on this file where it can move. It will be over here, for example, and to the cannon rank. So if this position were reached, it would be a draw because neither side can it would be impossible for black to win, but red cannot deliver a checkmate either. So red would have wasted a chance to try to win. So that is why once the black king was cornered, it will now be immobilized, and it would technically be a stalemate position, but it will be red's turn to move. So the best thing for red to do would be simply to move his king. For example, to advance his king, or to move his king to the 6th file. Either way, this would be a stalemate, and red would win. Now, returning to the initial position, if black were to move first, what would happen if black chose to advance his king? So at this point in time, there are two ways. Red would still be guaranteed to win, but he would have to be careful. Now at this point in time, traversing the pawn to the 6th file would not be an option. This is because the black king can simply capture the pawn, and it would be an automatic draw because there will be no attacking pieces left on the board, and it would be impossible for both players to try to win each other. So p5 equals to 6 would not be an option. Now, as mentioned earlier, to get to the stalemate position, red can do the first option would be for red to play k5 equals to 1 or k5 equals to 4. Now this would it would be black's turn to move, and black would have to make a move, and the only legal move possible, as black cannot advance or move to the central file because it will be controlled by the red pawn. The only legal move that black can make would be to retreat his king, and once the black king retreated, red would simply advance his pawn forward to reach the initial position introduced just now, and this would be a checkmate for red. Another possibility would be if black chose to advance his king, red could still advance his pawn forward, and let's say black tried to find safety on the cannon rank. If black retreated his king, it will be a simple stalemate checkmate. So if red chose to advance his king to the cannon rank, it will be red's turn to move. So it is very important at this point for red to make this move. It will be the only move possible for red to deliver a checkmate, because by advancing the king, red would still have control over this central file by virtue of the royal rule, and the black king cannot retreat to the 3rd rank. So the king will be immobilized to this corner, and at this point in time, this would also be a checkmate. Now, if the red king moved to one of the red files, the black king would now be able to move to the central file. So as the pawn can only advance or move to the adjacent intersection on the same rank, the black this would not be a check, so the pawn will be forced to move away. So the black king would find safety for the time being. However, there would still be a way for red to win, making use of idle moves. At this point in time, red can simply make this move. So the king will now still protect the pawn, and the black king can only cannot move to this file. And the only legal move possible for the black king at this point in time would be to play here. It cannot retreat either. So once the black king moves to the fourth file, red would immediately control the central file with this move. Now this is a very important concept, especially in the end game, whereby you must try to control the central file in many situations for a win to materialize. So in this example, after playing k4 equals to 5, again the black king will be limited to making this move only. It cannot move here, or the royal rule will be breached. So the black king can only retreat, and at this point red could move his pawn to the centroid again. So the position that was reached just now will now return. So remember, red should not play k5 equals to 4. Instead, the only way for red to win would be to play k5 plus 1, resulting in a stalemate. So a quick recap. In this very short and simple tutorial, I've gone through the importance of the royal rule and the concept of the concept of cornering the enemy king, and the concept of cornering the enemy king so that a checkmate can be materialized in the board. Now these are very simple concepts, but I hope that the absolute beginner or the newcomer can learn and understand the moves shown here and the concepts that have been demonstrated. And please leave some comments if you like, because I'm trying to redo my whole site. I'm trying to re-identify the direction and purpose of my site to help, which is mainly to help non-Chinese in learning or understanding Xiangqi. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good week ahead.